Seems hard to believe. You might be tired of that music after 48 straight hours of TV and the NCAA tournament. It never disappoints. Welcome in on this Monday afternoon live. Coming to you a little bit after 1 o'clock. We're here almost every day. Say every day. Today, a little bit later, the Maize and Blue Review, weekdays at 1 o'clock. We're part of Rivals.com, talking about the latest in Michigan sports, and there's plenty to talk about. And we bring in Jim Scarcelli, who joined us after the Michigan victory over Tennessee on Saturday. Now he's back here on a Monday to talk a little basketball and football. How you doing, Jim?
Oh, it's all good, man. A lot of good stuff going on with Michigan athletics. Boy, the wrestling team represented well. My buddy Mike Amin's kid and my other buddy Sammy Amin, I know that went to school with the dads, and those guys have represented the hockey team. How great was that? I had my hockey buddies calling. My buddy Mark Champ, the former goalie, all his hockey buddies are fired up, and our women's basketball team doing great. The men doing great. I was able to see Michigan football practice the other day. We'll get into that, but a lot of good things happening with the Maize and Blue.
Yeah, I think you covered it all there. Gymnastics won the Big Ten too. How about that? So
that's right. I'm sorry I neglected them.
It'd have been easier to talk about, the things that weren't going well for Michigan, the things that are going great. It was a fabulous weekend somewhere where Manuel's sitting back, I think smiling, feeling good about what's going on with the athletic department. Let's get a word. We're going to talk some football coming up. Let's go to basketball. It's top of mind for a lot of people, and we did talk after the game, after Michigan beat Tennessee, but in the aftermath, you take a step away and then you go back and think about the game. What are you thinking about with Michigan advancing over Tennessee?
Just a great program win, a good job of coaches developing players. We needed depth. We needed that extra guard. They got Frankie Collins ready. The development of our freshmen, that are 30 games in, playing so much better. We're not the same team we were when we lost to Arizona. We're a totally different team. Hunter Dickinson is a much improved player. He couldn't make a shot from 10 feet last year. He is a legitimate three-point threat. That's all about work. The improvement this team had was in the summertime, was in the offseason, how much they've improved. But we're an optimistic bunch. We're going to get our point guard back. We've got everything going. They're going to be fired up. Villanova will be a challenge. That guy's one of the best coaches in the country. They recruit really good players, smart players. And when you play Villanova, everybody on Michigan's team is going to have to know how to defend low block offense. He will post up his point guards on the low block. Gillespie will be posted up. So Brooks, Frankie Collins, Devontae Jones, they're going to have to play low post defense. But we're ready for it, and we got every chance to win this game. I've seen them play Villanova a few times. We play our game, we make shots, we defend, and don't have the dumb turnovers. We didn't have the dumb turnovers against last week against Tennessee. It would have been a perfect game. We made shots, we played great defense, we had turnovers. Let's eliminate the turnovers against Villanova. It'll be a perfect game.
Yeah, Michigan definitely had a lot of turnovers in the first half against Tennessee. That was the bugaboo, but they corrected that. And you win a game in the tournament, you're getting big contributions from a lot of people. And you already mentioned Dickinson. Eli Brooks had a big layup to put him ahead. Also had that hook shot late, channeling Xavier Simpson or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar there late. That was huge. And we mentioned Terrence Williams II twice diving in there and coming up with big offensive rebounds. And it was reminiscent. Ray Jackson, the Fab Five, was in the crowd. He was sitting next to Chris Webber, and Terrence Williams afterwards. I couldn't shake the connection. That's kind of Ray Jackson, go in there and big plays.
Right, yeah.
And so you reminded me a little bit of the former Fab Fiver. But watching Villanova pretty close against Ohio State. Oh, the good news is that the Cats, they don't have a they don't really have a center, that you're looking at as a 7-footer or 6'11" or 6'10". They got a guy that's 6'9" and 6'8", but they're really wide and muscular. The two big time Samuels and Dixon, the two that they have that you would call front line players. But that's the good news, I think, for Hunter Dickinson. That's a matchup that it doesn't matter. Like, they can be wide and everything else. He can shoot over those guys. And if Michigan's going to be able to get him the ball, that will be huge, and that'll be an advantage and a mismatch that they'll look to take advantage.
Yeah, but Denny, at the same time that's an advantage, Michigan, it's a disadvantage because their game plan will be just like Colorado State's. They're going to get him. They're going to pull him away from the bucket. They're going to make him defend the three-point line. Whoever he's covering, they're going to pull him away. They're going to try to get him on mismatches and screens. So our advantage with him on offense will be our disadvantage with him.
Yeah, that was the bad news part of the good news.
Oh, I'm sorry. I cut you off. I'm sorry.
You're right. You're on top of that. I would also add that you already mentioned Gillespie. He's 6'3". They normally go with a 3-guard attack, and those guys go 6'4", 6'5". They're going 6'7". So they've got big guys, and you're right, or big guards, and they'll go to a 3-guard attack, and they will look to post all those guys, and they're the best free throw. You'll hear that about 100 times heading into the game on Thursday. They're the best free throw shooting team in the country. Michigan's a pretty good free throw shooting team as well. When they've had their big games and they played well, some of those games they hadn't missed at all, but they were good again on Saturday. So, yeah, Michigan's in with a chance. You can look. The odds makers only have Nova by 5 points. That's where you're talking about 2 possessions. If you're Michigan, that you got to make up. I don't think they think about it like that. I do a little bit, but they come out and play their best game. That's some of the good news too, Scar. I don't think Michigan's played their best game this year.
No, we've had bits and pieces, half here. Like I said, Tennessee, we were really good in 2 parts of the game. Let's put it all together because, Villanova is going to play methodical. They're going to play smart. Everybody can shoot. They can make free throws. They're really a fundamental, well-coached. They don't make a lot of stupid mistakes, but they're not going to be as much pressure to create turnovers like a Tennessee and some of the people we played. But, let's do what we've done, man. Play smart. Let's make shots. Let's defend. Let's rebound. Smart passes, and we can come out of there with a dub.
Yeah, Michigan against Purdue was probably their best game of the year. They did go on the road to Indiana, played well, shot really well. They did a good job going to Iowa City and beating Iowa late in the season. Hunter Dickinson, everybody actually played really well against Michigan State at home. So those were their 4 best games of the year. But the second half against Tennessee, they probably played their best half of basketball all year long. So that's good. They should be feeling good. And Devontae Jones, he tweeted out yesterday that he was looking like he had a clean bill of health and was going to be good to go for Thursday. And if that is the fact, like you mentioned on Saturday, it wasn't for sure that it was a concussion. He had his wrist injury, so the chance that they could get Devontae Jones with where Frankie Collins is coming from. We've talked all year long about this team. They really haven't depended. They haven't depended, or really couldn't depend on their bench. But, now that you're talking about what Terrence Williams has done over the last 2 weeks or so, and now that you got Frankie Collins in there, and you'll play Brandon Johnson, some situations where the big guys could use a quick blow. I mean, that's 8. That's 8 guys, and you're definitely wanting to rotate. You want to get and see what Williams could do with his hot hand and his ability to score and offensive rebound and junk it up or whatever else you want to talk about there. And Frankie Collins is a jet, so get him out there and let him go to work.
No, Denny, everything's looking positive. These guys are going to be fired up. Got to just, handle the moment, and they've already proven they can do it. Let's just hope for the best, man. We're all optimistic.
Yeah, well, this is the time today, Tuesday, Wednesday, leading up to the game. You got 4 days here that if you're a Michigan basketball fan, you just sit back and enjoy it, because you hadn't really had the opportunity this year to sit back and kick your feet up and feel like, hey, man, you really got something going. And you got something going now. And it's the first time all year and the best time to have it going that way. So enjoy that. Here's me handing out some advice on how to deal with the success of the Michigan basketball team. All right, Scar, you didn't just sit around watching basketball all weekend. You went out, made your way down to the athletic fields in Ann Arbor. Where did you go?
Yeah, I went to practice and watched a little scrimmage, and it was just a beautiful time for me. Let me say this too, Denny. I've been going to driving up to the U of M campus since 1978, maybe. I think was my first time as a freshman, and I've seen the development of that campus and seen the development of the athletic department. And we talked about gymnasts, the hockey team, and the our wrestlers. Anybody that's driven along State Street as many times as I have, and anybody that goes back, you look to your to the west, the left, as you're driving into campus, and you see all those athletic buildings. They weren't there 15, 20 years ago. The tennis and the wrestling and all those facilities are huge for the connection between how well we're doing in other sports. And I see Stephen Ross's name, and I want to applaud him. And because that stuff matters. But Denny, it was going into the Schembeckler Hall. It was because I've been going to practice for 40 some years, to Michigan practice. I've seen a lot of things over there, and we haven't been able to go for the last 2 years. So I always took my team there as a coach, and I used to go and just watch. I like to watch practice. When Bo was coaching, when Mo was coaching, when Lloyd was coaching, I've just been. Former players go. But here's what smacked me in the face as soon as I walked in that facility. I'm watching the players warm up. Is the size, the speed, and the athletic ability. We have elevated that. You can tell we've recruited. We're just a big, strong, good-looking, athletic. Just looking at them off the hoof. Okay. Compared to years ago, I don't want to get into some of these other coaches, but we weren't as big, thick, and as athletic as what I was seeing. The other thing that smacked me right in the face is the energy and in the enthusiasm from the coaches and the players. Now, spring ball is kind of tough to go through. I went through 4 of them, and it's tough. There's no games, but I saw a coaching staff full of energy. I saw players fired up, and that was great to see. I spent a lot of my time watching the coaches. I'm an old coach, and I'd like to see how these guys are coaching. And, I'm going to sound like a broken record with damn near all of them. They all, they've got different little approaches, but all of them were just really methodical teachers. I watched Elston, man, just methodical and encouraging, and I watched Hilo. He's a fired up guy. He's intense and attention to detail. I got to see more. You can see him running the offense, and he's a positive guy, really fired up, positive guy. Clinksdale's really vocal, and coaching on. And you see the same thing from all these guys, coaching on every play, loud, motivating, encouraging guys, teaching technique. Bellamy's fired up. He's a lot. He's there. You can feel his presence. And I was watching Jay Harbaugh and Weiss and Michael Hart, and I sound like a broken record because they're all highly energetic, great teachers. Jim has surrounded himself with some really, really good assistant coaches. So I was happy to see that because any kid that's getting recruited by those guys is, we got everything covered there with some really good teachers, really good coaches. They were all motivating. And I just thought it was a complete, solid staff. And I want to give credit to our head coach for doing that.
Well, before you go any further, there's a couple things that, the first thing is this past year, a lot of the players were asked when they knew that they might have had something special. Was it the Penn State game where they made the play? Was it, early on in the non-conference? Almost to a man, these guys talked about spring ball and playing with an enthusiasm in spring ball and really bringing that. And there was a lot of energy. They all mentioned the young coaching staff. They talked about the music that they played. I don't know if they play it during practice or after or whatever else, but they almost all mentioned that and spring. So going back, and I know Harbaugh looks at, all coaches do, like it's you're putting last season the bad. This is the start of the new season, so that you're noticing yourself an enthusiasm and an energy and a little bounce in all the coaches' step. To me, that is a good sign. The other thing is that in years past, if we were sitting here and you were telling me, these guys look good and this guy looks good and everything else, I might say, you know what, that's great, Scar, but this team has to beat Ohio State. This team hasn't been to Indianapolis. This team hasn't won anything in a long time. This team needs to get the monkey off their back. Now that they're sitting there and they've, to me, broken the seal where they know they could beat Ohio State. They know they can get to Indianapolis. They know they can compete in the Big Ten. To me, those are major things, and you can feel that in the off season here for the Michigan football program. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you sense that energy, and it's and they're fighting and competing like they're just as pissed off as they were last year. So you see it. You see guys competing for positions. You got a lot of guys competing for a couple. There's only a few spots open, and these players, because I went through it, man, they are competing for positions. I'll tell you another thing that jumped out at me is the emphasis on special teams. When I was playing, we worked on special teams. We'd work on it kind of all at one time, the whole period. It would be a section of practice, and we did it all at one time. They break it up throughout the whole course of the 2-hour practice, and it is emphasized. And there was a bunch of periods that were blended in with the punt game, the punt return, kick, and it's you get what you emphasize, Danny. A coach told me that a long time ago. You get what you emphasize. If you emphasize, you can't talk about special teams being important if you don't spend time on it. But and they had the top players on those special teams. Jay Harbaugh, I saw him out there coaching them up, leading them. Hell of a coach, hell of a communicator, and he has the pick of the roster for the special teams. A lot of teams will, you put this guy in. No, man. He can, if he wants Junior Colson on there, he can have him. If he wants Corum covering punts, he gets them. So I was really nice to see the emphasis on special team. And some of the things, Denny, that I
can jump in on special teams for a second. You just think about it. Both of the kickers, the Robbins and Moody, are back. That's nice for Jay and Jim Harbaugh and the rest of Michigan. You think about Ronnie Bell coming back, and he was in there on punt returns, but Sanders still is back, and so is AJ Henning. In Blake Corum, you mentioned him. He had a big return in the opener last year for U of M against Western. I think he had a 79-yard kickoff return in that first game. So they got there. When you talk about the specialists, I know there's more than, just 2 or 3 guys there. There's 11 when you're talking about a third of the game there, but that's good. And the big pieces there are all coming back. So there's not a lot of intrigue about, they might mix another guy in there, maybe in the punt return or maybe even in the kick return, but Henning was pretty good last year there. And the kickers, obviously Moody, he was named the top kicker in the country.
Yeah, Danny, those key guys that, everybody knows, the kicker and the punter and that, but I'm talking about the guys that were on like punt protection, you guys, your names you never hear, and that takes so much repetition to be good in punt protection, to be good in covering punts, and punt and kick return, and you got to rep it, you got to work it, you got to give guys, get good players, and it's definitely emphasized, and I liked it. I'll tell you something that's different from when I played, and I've seen it a couple of years now. They got a big old screen inside the field house. So if they run a play, a coach can look at it right away with his player and say, hey, look, you were this, you were too high, you were too wide, you know what I mean? It was, technology is something, man. It's right there on the practice field. The kid can't say, hey, I did this. And the coach said, no, man, you did. Look at the screen right there. The eye in the sky, don't lie. It's right there, man. So that was cool to see that. I got to talk, Denny, real quick, then I'm going to let you jump in. Another thing I was really impressed with Michigan is the amount of great people we have as support staff. I met one of my former players, Doug Mallory. He's been out there 30 years. He's working as an analyst. To have him as an analyst, he's a great coach, teacher. I met Denard Robinson. I shook his hand. Oh, what a guy. Full of love, full of life, loves Michigan. He's going to be a great coach. And he's, these guys are all part of the recruiting deal. I heard you've heard about Albert Karshny. I met him, great guy. Biff Poggi, the guy that was the great coach at St. Francis, working, helping Harbaugh. I shook his hand, talked to him. And Rick Minter, our defensive coordinator's dad, I knew him from way back when he was a defensive coordinator at Ball State. His dad, great. And he's around. He's an analyst. But my point is, we got really, really good people. So when a kid comes on a recruiting trip, I just want to tell this to our visitors, because I was that recruit at one time. You don't just meet one guy. You don't just meet, you meet the whole culture of the football program. You meet a lot of people, and we got a lot of good people. So when a kid comes up there to visit, man, he's getting and meeting really good people. So, I just wanted to mention that. I was impressed with the overall culture and team of support and coaches that we got going down there.
Two guys, Grant Newsome elevated from the position that he had, I think he's a GA, but now he's offensive line coach. The guy's only 25 years old. Are you able to pick him out as a coach, or did you think that he was a former player standing over there?
Well, I neglected to mention his name. I did watch him. He's definitely about 6'7", man. And I heard him out there. I was listening to him communicate, knows what he's talking about, a lot of passion. And yes, I did see him and I watched him coach, and he knows what the hell he's talking about. I don't know if that answers your question, Denny.
It does. I'm just looking for some of those. They still do have, Nua and Gaddis and Mike McDonald have departed, but you've got Jesse Minter, as you mentioned. Klingsdale is the co-defensive coordinator, but you would think Jesse Minter, who comes over, 39 years old, he's going to be the one that's calling the plays. But 39, but he's got a wealth of experience already as a DC, even in the SEC. So, was Minter out there among those that you talk about being the vocal guy running around? Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know that he really coaches a position, because Elston has the predominantly guy with the front four. I was trying to figure out how they did that, because when I played, we had an outside linebacker coach, and then we had a different coach for the three defensive linemen. And we occasionally, and he pretty much has that whole deal. He's got a GA that works a little bit, and Helo's the inside backer, and Klingsdale is the secondary guy. So Minter's kind of he didn't really have a position, but I did see him when they were going on defense. He's him and Klingsdale were the key guys. But that's interesting. Some teams will have their coordinator not coach a position, and some, my experience in college, the coordinator was the inside linebacker coach, Coach McCartney, Coach Moeller. So, but everybody has different philosophies. Some offensive coordinators do the same thing. They might not have a position, but I saw him out there. He's an impressive guy, and the defense definitely they were in the right spots, and they were getting coached.
Well, when you look over there, I know Harbaugh, when he had, it's been about 2 weeks now, when he had a little spring news conference, you mentioned Taylor Upshaw, and then that how Mike Morris is coming along. And of course, that's going to be the biggest question when you have two guys just going to lose first-round talents and a number one overall pick in Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo, who was going to be a first-round pick. He's got his injury. Hopefully everything's going to work out for Ajabo there. But, that's your old position there. When you saw the guys taking the reps, you think – I'm thinking myself – with the schedule that they have, Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn and Maryland, you don't necessarily have to go in there and pen a bunch of guys in and say, hey, these are the ones that, are going to be taking all the reps. You've got probably 4 or 5 guys just at the rush outside linebacker that you can mix in and really give some snaps and have that competition even go into the fall, into the games.
Yeah, of course. That's the position I played, so I wanted to take a real good look at it. And, we have a good problem, and I would say this to our listeners: the problems we have that our coaches have is trying to pick the best one. It's not like, we got to go get a transfer. We don't have those problems. We got guys at every position that can play. Okay, it's just a matter of picking the one that's making the least mental mistakes, who plays the run the best, who could rush the quarterback the best, who adjusts better. So there's so many things that these coaches are looking at. So when I'm looking at these guys, there's so many things I don't know. I don't know how many mental mistakes they make. I see toughness when I watch a scrimmage. I see certain things. I would say Morris is a guy that he's proved it. I think he's a pretty much a lock. But I think there's going to be 4 or 5 guys battling for that other position. The number 32 is Farrell, right? Is that how you say his name?
Harrell, yeah.
Harrell is better, bigger. McGregor is bigger, better, stronger. Upshaw is bigger, better. TJ Guy is a hell of an athlete. He's a good-looking kid. He can run. He can move. He's a big, thick kid. Who else do I got there? And then
you mentioned McGregor.
Yeah, I mentioned. You know who? I mean, I just look at these guys on the hoof. I watch the freshman. This kid's 17, 18 years old. Derek Moore. What an athlete. What a specimen. I mean, I don't know how quick he's going to get and learn and understand. The big thing with a young guy like that, Denny, when you're a big athletic, any of us, we face this in high school. You can have poor technique and you can still split a double team in high school. You can stand up high and you can get away with things. But in college, he's going to now have to play a double team of 2 6'6", 320-pound guys that have been in the weight room for 3 years. So he's got to learn his technique. But I see a competition, I think, for about 4 guys that are going to fight for that one position. Because I think more, but there's a lot of guys that look good. They got to get reps, and then find out who's making the least mental mistakes and who can rush the quarterback, who can play the run, and the guy that can do the most. Because, you talk about Ajabo. Who the hell knew about Ajabo last year at this time? Nobody did. And there's a guy here, there's guys and looking at Michigan, that we don't know about and that are going to have, that are come out of nowhere and have, they're going to have good years. But I don't know if that answered your question on the edge guys. In fact, I asked what the hell they call that position. We call them outside linebacker. I guess they call them edge guys. That's what they said.
Defensive rush edges. Well, the guys in the middle there, last year at this time, Jim Harbaugh was talking about Mozzie Smith, and it was a little bit of an eye roll for me. I think people that watch and listen to coaches after spring, when they talk about who's having outstanding springs or guys that make a big jump, I think you might have heard 10 or 20 over the years, and then when it comes to the fall, you're like, hey, where is Grady Brooks? You guys said he was having a great spring, and then it doesn't happen. But last year, Harbaugh said that Mozzie Smith was having a great spring, and he said it again. So when you're talking about the inside guys, I think that we understand that 58 is going to be the man in the middle there. Chris Jenkins got some time last year. We know his dad was an inside tackle in the pros. The thought was that he was going to be able to, he was a redshirt freshman last year, that he would probably put on some weight, get some size, and he might be one of those pillars on the inside. Anybody like Chris Jenkins or Rashawn Benny, who are a lot of people are asking about. He is, I'm just looking at what was he's wearing 26 on the inside. That seems a weird number for a big defensive tackle, but what about him? What about
Benny? I think I look at that position just like I look at the outside guys. Morris is locked in, and then it's everybody battling for the other positions. Who's going to be Morris's backup and who's going to be at the guy at the other side? And I think the same thing on the inside. Mozzie's got a spot, and then there's 5-6 guys fighting for that other spot. And talking about Mozzie, you remember, Denny, how people, the people, we always talk about they. Who's they? But there were some people that were down, guys like us in the media. People were kind of down, like Mozzie, 5-star, big-time recruit, and we hadn't seen him play real well, as when he was young.
Nothing, right? Not much.
But trust me, man, I went through it as a player too. I was terrible when I was a freshman. I was below average when I was a sophomore. And then my third spring, it started to click. And that's the same thing that's going to happen to some of these guys. So I think we got the same problem there. We got some really big, thick, tough-looking kids. Jenkins is definitely, we know he can play, but you got to have a little more size to you to play inside those guards, inside the center guard gap. and they had him in there, and he plays with great technique. We know he's a good player. He's going to be getting looks there. I didn't see Jeter out there, but we do believe he's coming back.
That's right.
I tell you, a kid that is the freshman looked pretty damn good. That Mason Graham.
Yeah,
man, he's an impressive looking player. He's been well coached. That's a good sized kid. And Benny could be the next Mozzie Smith. He's a big athletic kid, and it's just got to click for him, man. He's just got to click. But there's a lot of guys fighting for that spot and hitting spot. I would say we're in a good position because all those kids look like they can play. And who's gonna make plays? Who's gonna have the best spring?
Anybody else when you're getting out to the linebackers? Because Michael Barrett late in the year, he got out there and he played a lot. He played the year before he started the opener against Minnesota, I believe, in the COVID season. But so you got Barrett and Nikai Hill-Green, Junior Colson. I mean, those are three guys that you could talk about if you're looking for 2 or 3 spots that you could have your starting linebackers already. But anybody else that you would look to when you saw the linebackers out there?
Yeah, Danny, there was a lot of young guys. You try to digest as much as you're looking. I'm there and I'm watching. There's so many things going on. I'm talking to this guy and watching the scrimmage, and and there was a lot of young, fast, good-looking kids. My answer is pretty darn weak there, but Hill Khalil is a good-looking kid. Junior's the leader. He's the alpha dog of that group. And I was watching Hilo coach, and they're getting well coached. But I can't give you a specific name. I saw a lot of good-looking kids in there, and they were I have to say this: the coaching staff is doing a great job of giving every single kid on that roster opportunities to prove whether they can play or not. They were all getting reps into the scrimmages and into the drills they were doing. Every kid, is getting the opportunity. He's getting coached, and they're getting the opportunity to show what the hell they can do. But no, I don't have some other names other than those 3. I stood next to Michael Barrett, man. Not a real big kid. He looks like a little thicker. He's been in the weight room. Donovan Edwards, you could tell he's been in the weight room. He looks thicker. There's some guys that got put a little more size on.
What about the highly rated kid from Detroit? We go to staying on the defensive side, Will Johnson. Like, this was the J.J. McCarthy of this last class. He's in for spring. He's a corner. Michigan has, you could say, if they were lining up next week, I think we could say Jymon Green and DJ Turner would be their corners. You start looking to whatever nickel guys or, the third defensive backs. You might be talking about Jalen Perry, but maybe
I watched him. I watched him in our secondary. There's a lot of good looking kids there. He was limited. They had him limited for some reason.
Okay.
So I did look at him, and he was not doing much because he said he's had some kind of whatever. Maybe he had a ding L something, but he was limited in what he can do. Same with JJ. They look good, but they're limited. So that's all I can really say about those guys. And people got to understand. I'm a former player. I'm invited to this thing. I'm going to try to give our listeners what I can, but I'm not going to tell you the trick plays we're working on, and I'm not going to get into the scheme adjustments or things I saw schematically that were different. But I'm trying to give them what I can without giving them too much. But yeah,
how about a last word on the defense? Keon Sabb. Somebody that, at least in some of the reports, people are saying a lot of things about the true freshman safety or corner or linebacker. And we know that Rod Moore, Jim Harbaugh had mentioned that he's out for spring. And so you got a lot of different guys there at safety and corner that you were probably looking at and had to check your roster.
Yeah, I did. I did see him. And, so much of playing early, you have to be sound on your mental adjustments, and you got to be in the right coverage, the right spot. You got to be, and some of those young guys, they were maybe struggling with some of that stuff. So yeah, he's a good looking kid, come up and tackle, great in space. But these coaches have to trust them to put them in front of 100,000 people, and their job is relying on that. So the assistant coaches got to make sure sometimes they will play an inferior kid athletically if he makes zero mental mistakes, Denny. You got to understand that. And some of these young guys, they have to make, they got to be mentally sharp and be in the, if you're supposed to be in the flat, be in the flat. If you're supposed to be in the deep half, be in the deep half. You got the middle third, be the middle third. If you got to cover the number 2 receiver, cover the number 2. You got to be in the right spot. And many times there's guys that don't play because of that. So when I look at a kid athletically for a couple plays at a scrimmage, that's one thing. I don't know what kind of mental mistakes he's making or how smart he is mentally, and that's hard to tell. I don't know if that answers your question, but I just wanted to give you a little more insight as to these decisions these coaches are trying to make now.
Scar, you know, after your playing days, you went on as a high school coach for a couple of decades there. So, and you went to, you mentioned it at the beginning, been to a lot of practices here. And like an old coach, you know, talking about it, you started out with special teams. I think people appreciate that. We went over on the defensive side of the ball. Let's go to offense. Let's start with the guys throwing the ball. You mentioned McCarthy. We knew he was going to be limited. Jim Harbaugh had mentioned that at his introductory spring presser. But you have a couple other QBs there, including the returning starter, Kate McNamara. You got Alan Bowman, and then you got a pair of freshmen. Anybody in particular stand out, being able to sling the ball and put some zip on it, making some throws out of the signal callers?
Yeah, Kate McNamara is a flat-out stud. The kid just throws dimes, and the velocity on the ball I was really impressed with. We've seen the accuracy, but you don't really get a feel for the velocity. I was up close watching him. Just a great leader. I was watching him the way he, handles the huddle, and definitely a guy I'd want as my quarterback. And I'm watching Moore lead that offense, and Weiss, and they're just really good. But the young guys, I would just call them pups, 12 and 16. Let me get the numbers here real quick.
Alex Orji and Jaden Denegal.
Yeah, they're pups, man. They haven't got, they're learning the ropes. They're good. They're both good looking specimens. Orji they both throw the ball nice. They're big physical kids. What's his 16 here? He looks like Big Joe that we just had. Joe, kid that left. What the hell's his name? Joe, the quarterback that left, went to Tennessee. What's his name?
Oh, Joe Milton. Sorry.
Yeah, he's that kind of a big, thick kid, man. He's a big kid. They're young, they're supposed to be in high school now. So, they're making some mistakes. But I see an impressive looking athletes. They're going to work on their arm. But it makes me think, JJ, okay, can run, athletic. These two guys can throw and run, athletic. I think Jim Harbaugh wants guys that can run and throw and athletic, get us out of trouble. And so I didn't really – I was watching the young guys. I didn't see much of Bowman. I didn't see much of him. I was watching those young guys, and I was like, you know what? I think we're in good shape. They're real young.
Any of those walk-ons or anything look like they can throw the ball?
I didn't get to look at some of them, man. Yeah, then you just get overwhelmed, man. I'm talking to Biff Poggi. We're watching. I'm talking to Doug Mallory. I'm trying to get caught up with all the BS. I'm talking to Denard Robinson. What a stud, man. That kid's he's gonna be a head coach soon. He's got the charisma. And that's another guy. You go on your recruiting trip. He's not an official coach. He's not going to go on the road recruiting. But when you come to Ann Arbor, people talk about the recruiting coordinator. Man, that's just another guy. You meet Denard Robinson, you meet Doug Mallory, you meet the position coach, you meet all these different people. But yeah, it was. I didn't get to evaluate other quarterbacks that much, Denny.
Yeah, hey, Denard Robinson's a superstar. You don't have to sell that to me. You're a superstar, Scar. So you and Shoelace coming together. I wish I had a picture of that. I'm familiar with most of the wideouts here. They've got 3 of the kids that are in for spring that are all pretty highly rated. And Darius Clemens. I remember just looking at the picture of Clemens when he came in. He looked like DK Metcalf, from the Seahawks. He already looks like a senior physically. Amarian Walker, Tyler Morris. I know he was injured in his junior or senior year, but he looked like he could run every route in the book over there. The true freshman wideouts.
I looked at all of them, and there's a common thread there. They're all clones of Andrew Anthony type guys. They're all big, tall kids. So Jim is going. That looks like that's the change in direction. I think Josh Gaddis wanted, more speed and space. Yeah, Darius Clemens is a good-looking, impressive athlete. I saw him. They threw a bubble pass to him. I saw him catch the ball and run, and he's a good-looking athlete, man. So he's a guy that's going to be in the mix competing. And same with Walker, another good. Those are 6'3", 6'4" kids. Those are the kind of targets. And then the other one you mentioned,
Tyler Morris. Yeah, he's I think goes 6'1", 6 feet, but so he might not be the giant like the other two.
But I did watch Zero, and and it's just like, if I'm maybe that's what Jim wants as a quarter, whatever. He's changing. It looks like he's changing a little bit. He's getting back to the height. That was the Lloyd Carr, the Braylon Edwards. Let's get that big catch radius, and also guys that can run. But there's definitely going to be a lot of competition in that receiver room, and that might have been one of the reasons. Even though Sanistro was so good, he's saying, look, maybe you can get on the field quicker on defense. But there's serious competition to get on that field in the receiver room.
Yeah, what number was Clemens wearing? 0?
Yeah, 0.
I like it. All right, Michigan's stacked at tight end, and you had the emergence of Schoonmaker last year. All's coming back. Hibner, you got some of these younger guys. Lewis Hansen, one of the freshmen, was reported in for spring. Loveland, so they're stacked at tight end. Any of those guys show some hands or speed? Anything that jumped out to you there?
I watched 83 all looking, doing the ball a couple of times. Obviously, he caught the ball and block, and I watched a little bit of their drills. Who looked slimmer was 84. He was a 300-pound kid, former tackle. He looks way trimmer. What the hell's his name? 84. He was what's his name, Denny? He was getting a lot of reps, more reps. Joel Honigford.
Honigford, yeah.
Yeah, yep. He looked, because he was a converted Harbaugh. He was like what we would call an imposter. He was an offensive tackle. They just put an 80 number on him and just blocked. But he looks like he lost some weight, and maybe he's going to be more of a in the pass game. But he's back. I don't know if he's a 6-year guy, but he was getting reps, and it's a good-looking group. There's a lot of good-looking, talented kids there. We got time. With those guys coming back, Shoemaker and all is coming back. We got in Honingsford, we got another year to develop these young guys, but the talent looked really good. And let me also say this, Danny, there was a lot of recruits there, man. A lot of recruits with their parents, and that was nice. There was a bunch of pro coaches there too, because they had their pro day today, and. I just want to say this real quick about Pro Day. Why? Because I'm pissed off Ojabo got hurt, because I went through that stuff. And here's what they do, Danny. They got all these different tests. So you run a 40, you stand around for 20 minutes, and then maybe you run another one, and then you stand around some more, and then you do a shuttle drill, and you stand around some more. What they need to do is warm these kids up one time, have them run their 40, wait about 3-4 minutes, do their agility drills, wait a couple more minutes, keep them. My point is, Danny, run them when they're warm, because there's all that standing around, and that's when your body gets stiff, and that's when guys get hurt. I saw that, and that's the first thing that came to mind. Was I remember going through that as a player, and there's a lot of standing around, and it's hard to keep your body warm and loose. So that just kind of bugged me when I heard that.
I like it. I like the recommendation as well, and hopefully, maybe we'll have to send this tape down.
Yeah, what do I'm just an old boomer, washed up high school coach. They ain't gonna listen to me, Dan.
No, that makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. The offensive line, we're pretty sure. Jim Harbaugh said that Trente Jones was working at right tackle. The Hayes was the starter last year at left tackle. So Jones at right tackle. Hayes at left tackle. The two guards, Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter, we're pretty familiar with those two. And Zinter, the leader at right guard there. And the big kid coming over from Virginia, Aluskin Olowatimi. And we've heard good things about both Reese Atterbury and Greg Crippen there at center. So I don't know how much you can take from a scrimmage, but this is one of the strengths. Quarterback, running back, tight end, look to be the wide receiver is stacked for Michigan, but the offensive line could be their strongest group, at least taking a look at them at paper, on paper, I should say. You weren't looking at them on paper. You were looking at them out on the practice field. Could you tell anything about this group?
Yeah, there's a lot of good depth. We've recruited well, and there's going to be serious competition there. And then, just like you said, they had the transfer in there at center. He was running with the first, and then the other guy was Trent was running with the first at tackle. And there was rotating. They switch guys around, move some guys from second up and back and forth, and that's something that they commonly do. And nothing's set in stone. But there's a lot of depth. I watch them do their pass rush drills. I watch them do some things, and you're right. It's a good problem. There's a lot of good. They're big on the kid from Sterling Heights, Haddad. I forget how you say his name. He's a good looking, mean, tough kid. He's a good looking, mean, tough kid. He's from my neck of the woods over here. So, you have a bad practice, you screw around and have a couple bad practices. There's someone breathing down your throat, Danny. That's how it is, man. There's a pecking order, and you better bring it every day. And there's competition down there, and there's a lot of depth. So you better not get cut fat and happy. But I don't know if Danny, to answer your question, you mentioned all them names, and they were plugged in right in the same spots you talked about, and they were them amongst other kids, because there's 12, 15, 14 offensive linemen that God, it's hard to differentiate. There's just big athletic kids.
It's been a long time since I've been to a Michigan football practice. I've been to a lot of Lions practices over the years, and they cut the media off sometimes when they really scrimmage. So you see maybe sometimes only 20%. You're watching them stretch, but you do get to see sometimes a little bit of scrimmaging over there. And I watch it, and then a funny thing happens on the way to the car. I get a little bounce in my step, and I'm over there, and the whistles and the guys running around hitting sleds and going through the getting put through the paces with the coaches and everything else, and people yelling. By the time I get to the car, man, I'm ready to jump in the car and maybe push it around a little bit, get out there and watch some football, play some football. So I know how it goes, that the blood starts coursing through your veins a little bit, Scar, once you get out there. And as you mentioned, there weren't a lot of former coaches or former players getting a chance to go out there because of COVID and everything, couldn't get over there on the sideline. So this is likely the longest time that you've been away from a practice field. So it had to feel good for you.
Yeah, Danny, I literally, 1980, I was a high school senior. I was invited to practice. I watched them prepare for their first, Rose Bowl victory, back. So I've been going there, man. I've seen the facility develop. I've seen everything down there, man. And it keeps getting better, that facility. There's so many things that are better for the players, man. I got some notes on the facility real quick. I think our people need to know this.
Well, you put your thought together. I wanted to go back to something at the beginning you said. So when I started working in Ann Arbor, it was 94 as an intern. I worked there to 2005, and a lot of people talked about the facilities. Like, yeah, the big house is great, but they didn't have any luxury boxes or anything else. They just had that little press box, but the rest of the facilities, they used to call Chrysler Arena. It's Chrysler Center now, but before the renovation, we called it the mausoleum because, you'd go in there, it was dark, you could hear it drop. It wasn't bad. But the athletic facilities, including baseball and softball right over there, Yost is a nice looking building and everything, but it really wasn't, compared to the rest of the Big Ten, it was nothing that it would jump out. But you fast forward to the renovation of the stadium. And, they put that big billboard out there, And if you're driving, you get the stadium in Maine, and you take a right on Stadium. You're looking over to the left. You see the stadium. You see that flashing LED sign. You see the Chrysler Center. I remember, I hadn't been down there, 5-10 years, and all that built up. I went to some games and things, but not. It kind of looked like I was so much into the future. I was like, this thing has not just a facelift. It was just an incredible transformation of the athletic facility down there. And you keep going over the bridge. Hey, they redid the bridge. You look over there, the practice facility. Now they got the Glick Field House inside. It's nicer than anything they got down in Allen Park.
Yeah, that stuff matters. Some things matter in facilities, but yeah, I've been going for a long time, and Michigan was the first one in the country to have an indoor practice facility. And you look at Michigan's bowl record after that, it's a lot better. But the video on the screen I talked about, they were using inside and outside field. It was a nice day. The expanded offices that they have, and there's so many different offices now. The weight room, when I was there, our weight room was okay, but they actually blew out half of the indoor football building, and it's now a weight room, and it's unbelievable. They got everything. This strength coach is as good as anybody in the country, and I was really like that. Right in the middle of the weight room, they got the Joe Moore trophy. The Joe Moore trophy, Denny, is huge. It ain't no little trophy like this, man. It's as big as one of them old televisions you had back in the 70s. And it's a big thing, and it's right in the middle of the weight room. That was cool. The training tubs and the things we got with the ice tubs and all this stuff for our guys is great. They got the museum there, and it all helps with recruiting, and they show these kids around that. The two things I loved more than anything, though, is they got training table right there for the players. When I played, you go to practice, and then you got to get in your car, and you got to drive to South Quad, eat at the dormitory, which was a pain. It's okay if you were a freshman or sophomore still living at South Quad, but now they got the food right there. It's a lot more convenient. It's better. But the greatest addition to that whole facility, Denny, was that new banner they had hanging in the practice facility. 2021 Big Ten champs. That was the greatest addition to the facility that I saw.
That's good stuff. I don't have anything that you took it right to the whistle right here at the end, and you saved the best for last. Great job. You're making me wish football started this week. I just see that Matt Ryan got traded to the Colts. That's a shocker. The NFL stayed near the news. Scar, great job. Any last thing here? You ended up talking about the banner. You can't do anything else, anything better than that. You mixed it up with Mallory a little bit. Did you get a football in your hand at all, or anything like that?
No, I didn't get to throw any ball. I think I might have gave Mallory a forearm. I think I slapped Denard upside the head. He was a guy that played. There's that bond. You played there. It doesn't matter when you played. You got a connection. Yeah. But you talk about that energy, Denny, and that juice. Well, there's a guy there that is Mr. Enthusiasm, Mr. Energy. His name is Jack Harbaugh. And I was able to shake his hand. And you talk about a guy, you shake his hand, and you're full of juice, like you said when you were at Michigan practices. You were ready to go tackle somebody. Well, Jack Harbaugh is that guy. What a good man. I was able to shake his hand, talk to him for a second, and just a lot of good things going on, man. Michigan ain't sitting on nothing. We're fired up. We got good players. We got good coaches. We got great facilities, and we got the right guy leading us, man. We're in good shape.
Well, Jim said, that this team is scary good, and it sounds like you agree with that after your assessment of watching them go through
I saw. I'm going to say this. There was our scheme is our scheme. I don't think there's much different. We are what we are now. I think he's really settled in on what we are. I'm not going to get into some stuff I saw, but there's some subtle little tweaks. But I think we have a foundation on defense, and we can go. On offense, if we want to go 4 wide or empty with 4 receivers or whatever, we can do that. If we want to play with 6 offensive linemen and 4 tight ends and a running back, we can do that. We have the ability to do that. And on defense, we can stop both of those schemes. That's what I like about. I think our offense helps our defense by what we do, and I think our defense helps our offense based on the multiple stuff we do. And that's a sign of a guy that knows how to really improve his football team.
Jim, I know you might sound like a coach here, because if you threw the question at me, I might sound like a coach talking about balance or being able to do what you want when you want or stay in front of the chains, all those kind of things. But there's no doubt last year that Michigan, they emphasized, Josh Gaddis said it before the season, and nobody sounded more like a coach than Josh Gaddis when he said, we want to get back to running the football and we want to run the ball more. I was like, okay, this guy, Josh Gaddis, sounds like Bo or any other coach that I've ever seen, wearing the maize and blue. But he was right. Michigan did want to get back to running the ball, and they did. But we've gone through those wide receivers, and they don't have Hassan Haskins, but Blake Corum's pretty good. So is Donovan Edwards, and they've got a freshman coming in, so they've got some nice weapons there. And if you're just joining in, Scar mentioning that Edwards looked like he put on a little bit of size. I think the sky, I feel like everybody feels like the sky's the limit for that kid. But that was a long setup to the question is, do you think that they are going to throw the football a heck of a lot more, considering the personnel that they have and the experience now with McNamara and maybe however much McCarthy's ready to go? Do you think they're going to throw the ball a lot more?
No, Denny, we are a football team that wants to have the ability to do everything: run it, throw it, jet, power, run out of empty, run the ball out of spread formations, throw the ball out of three tight ends. So to answer your question, what we're going to do is going to be, a lot of it's going to be dictated by the defense. If the defense can't stop our simple run plays, our zone and our power, the stuff Jim Harbaugh has been running for 30 years, if you can't stop that, then we're going to keep doing it. We're not going to throw it much more if we don't have to. Because early in the year, remember, we just kept running it and pounding it because they couldn't stop us.
Yes, I do remember that.
And people say, well, how we're going to be able to throw? Well, let's get good at something. As a coach, you got to get good at something. Your players have to get confident at something. And that comes with running something and through repetition. So, Denny, to answer your question, we are going to be a football team that can throw it out of every formation, because we got a lot of weapons out of every formation, every deal we do, and we're going to be able to defend everybody. So I don't think we're going to just say, okay, because we got these receivers, we have a need to throw it. No, if we're going to do what the hell the defense is dictating, and if they're going to overload our run game, you're damn well we're going to throw it. If you can't stop the run game playing an honest defense, then we're going to make you pay. We got a bunch of good athletic receivers and a quarterback that's going to make you pay for that. I don't know if that answered your question, Denny.
Hey, Jake Moody, it might cost him the Groza, because he might just be kicking extra points there. He might not do a lot of field goals, just lining up on extra point. Scar, great job. It was a great weekend for Michigan. It was a fabulous weekend for you. And this is the way to get a Monday going, bringing the maize and blue, talking some Michigan football. It was awesome. I want to say this is your best appearance ever. I believe that. You showed an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. Great job. I can't wait to talk with you again. And thanks for all the information.
Go Blue, Danny. A lot of good stuff happening in Ann Arbor.
There he is, Jim Scarcelli. We'll leave you. I'm still not done. Thanks to CBS for the audio. Thursday. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Everybody have a great day.